The stars above Arcadia Prime always looked calm. From orbit, the blue-green world floated in the dark like a small lantern, its clouds turning gold as sunlight crossed its seas. For 20 years, settlers had called it home. They built towns along the rivers, planted forests in wide valleys, and raised silver towers on the shores. Children played in fields of tall grass, and farmers spoke with engineers about irrigation lines. Everything seemed safe. That safety ended on an ordinary morning. From a listening post near the edge of the colony system, technician Mara Chen noticed the first problem. Her console showed a thin line of static where the Arcadia beacon should have been. She frowned, adjusted the receiver, and waited. The beacon was the colony's heartbeat, a steady pulse sent to Earth every few minutes. Now there was nothing. She called her supervisor. "Control, this is Station Echo 9. I'm losing the Arcadia signal." "Check power levels," the voice replied. "They're normal," Mara said. She switched to secondary equipment, but the silence stayed. A hollow feeling grew in her chest. Beacons did not fail without reason. Within an hour, all outposts along the rim reported the same thing. Arcadia Prime had gone dark. Far across the solar system, Earth's command network began to hum with warnings. At the orbital fleet center above Geneva, Admiral Elena Rios stood before a wall of data. She was tall, with steady eyes that seemed to measure every problem before she spoke. Around her, officers worked at their consoles, reviewing charts and signal logs. "Run every channel," Rios ordered. "Tight beam, quantum relay, emergency bands. If Arcadia's equipment is damaged, they may be using backups." Teams obeyed, but hours passed with no reply, not even a distress code. The last clear transmission from the colony had been routine. Weather reports, trade schedules, a small note about an upcoming sports tournament. Nothing unusual. By late evening, the Assembly of Earth convened a secure meeting. Leaders from the homeworld, Mars, Luna, and the Belt joined by HoloLink. The room's screens showed their serious faces. President Malik of Earth began. "We have lost contact with 20 million citizens. No signals, no ships leaving orbit, nothing. We need answers." Some suggested solar storms. Others spoke of a massive equipment failure. But Rio shook her head. Arcadia had triple redundancy. Even if power plants failed, emergency satellites should still call for help. Something else happened. 2 fast couriers were ordered to jump to Arcadia's system. Their journey through slip space took only 2 days. When they arrived, they found silence thicker than before. The planet's surface looked wrong. Great dark stains lay across the continents, as if enormous hands had pressed ash into the soil. No cities shone in the night. Orbital platforms drifted in ruins, their edges melted as if cut by beams of light. Captain Darius Hall of the Courier Arrow sent a cautious report back to Earth. "Arcadia is gone. We see no survivors, no signals. Damage patterns are not natural. Request permission to descend for closer study." Earth approved, and small landing craft slipped through the quiet sky. Teams walked through the remains of Harmony City, once Arcadia's capital. Buildings stood half-collapsed, their windows clouded with soot. Streets were littered with fragments of glass and plastic, yet there were no bodies, not a single trace of the people who had lived here. One investigator knelt beside a scorched wall and brushed off black dust. "The temperature here must have been thousands of degrees," she said softly. "But why are there no remains?" Another replied, "Because someone removed them or disintegrated them." Hall frowned at the horizon. "Look at the blast marks. They're too clean, too precise." This was an attack. When word reached Earth, grief swept through human space. People gathered in public squares, staring at silent news feeds. On Mars, colonists lit candles along the domes. On Luna, miners stopped work and looked out at the stars. The name of Arcadia was whispered with sorrow and anger. Rio stood with her staff as new data arrived from the survey teams. Among the wreckage of an orbital station, they had found a shard of alloy unlike any human metal. Its surface shimmered faintly, alive with energy even after the attack. Deeper scans revealed faint writing. Sharp strokes burned into the material. A linguistics unit examined it for 2 days. Finally, they unlocked part of the message. "We warned you not to expand." The words chilled every room where they were read. The assembly gathered again, this time with heavier guards at the doors. President Malik spoke first. "We are no longer talking about an accident. This was deliberate." Representatives argued across the chamber. Some urged caution, fearing a war they could not win. Others demanded immediate retaliation. A voice from the Martian delegation said, "If an enemy thinks they can erase a colony without consequence, they will strike again." Rios listened quietly before speaking. Arcadia's destruction was meant as a lesson. Whoever did this wants to frighten us into staying inside our borders. If we stay silent, they will only grow bolder. She asked for permission to prepare the Grand Fleet, not to attack, not yet, but to defend human space and search for whoever had written that warning. After long debate, the Assembly agreed. News of the decision raced through the population. Shipyards on Earth, Mars, and Titan began long shifts, calling every engineer and technician. Factories built new hull plates and reactor cores. Volunteers crowded enlistment offices. They wanted to protect what remained, to make sure Arcadia's fate would never be repeated. Meanwhile, Rio sent scouts along distant trade routes. Some returned with reports of unusual signals, shadows on sensors, ships that vanished as soon as they were tracked. Others found nothing. The enemy, whoever they were, seemed to know how to stay hidden. At night, Rios walked the quiet decks of the flagship Sol's Promise. She paused by the viewing window, gazing at Earth below, its oceans shining like silver in moonlight. She thought of the families who had left for Arcadia, full of hope and of the void that had swallowed them. "We will find them," she whispered. "We owe that to every soul who built a life out there." Back on Arcadia, survey teams continued their work. They found traces of strange energy along mountain ridges, as if something had opened the ground and sealed it again. Sensors picked up a faint echo, like a memory burned into the air. Scientists believed it was the aftermath of a weapon far beyond human design. One team uncovered a buried device half melted by its own power. Its shape suggested it was not meant to kill but to transport. "Maybe they were taken," a young analyst said. "Maybe the colonists are alive somewhere." Hope flickered, but there was no proof. The device's core was dead, its secrets locked behind alien symbols. Weeks passed. Earth's people adapted to the new reality. They were not alone, and not all neighbors were friendly. Conversations in cafes and transport hubs turned to defense drills, ship counts, and theories about the unknown attackers. Yet behind the fear was a quiet strength. Humanity had faced hard times before, plagues, wars, long winters, and it always stood up again. In classrooms, teachers told students about Arcadia's gardens and rivers, reminding them why exploration mattered. "The stars are dangerous," one teacher said gently, "but they are also our future. We honor those who went first by refusing to give up." One night, as Rios reviewed fresh intelligence, a young officer hurried in. "Admiral, a message from our deep space relay near Kepler Gate. They detected a formation moving along the outer edge of human charts. Unknown configuration." Rios leaned over the display. Symbols of distant ships glowed on the map, drifting slowly but with clear purpose. The formation was large, perhaps dozens of vessels, and it was heading toward settled space. "Mark their course," she said calmly. "Double surveillance. If they cross our line, I want to know first." As the officer ran to carry out orders, Rios stayed by the map. She traced the path with her finger, connecting the silent colony, the strange warning, and these new intruders. Pieces of a puzzle were beginning to align, though the picture was still unclear. She straightened and turned toward the stars beyond the viewport. "Whoever you are," she murmured, "we will not hide. We will not be erased." The ruins of Arcadia Prime lay quiet, but the silence was only the beginning of the mystery. Earth had answers to find, and Admiral Elena Rios was given the task. She stood in the command hall of the Sol's Promise, a great flagship stationed in high Earth orbit. Screens along the walls glowed with maps, energy scans, and reports from scientists scattered across human space. Rios studied the newest images from Arcadia: twisted towers, melted roads, and scorched valleys. There were still no signs of survivors, yet certain areas showed something stranger than destruction. Smooth craters where metal had been turned to glass, lines carved into rock as if traced by perfect hands. Dr. Kieran Vance, head of xenotechnology, appeared on the main display. His face looked tired but alive with focus. "Admiral, we examined the fragment recovered from the orbital debris," he said. "It's an alloy we can't reproduce. Microscopic channels run through its surface, carrying a field we don't fully understand. And there's more, the message carved into it wasn't just a warning. Parts of the code suggest it was created by an artificial intelligence." Rios nodded slowly. Machine intelligence, she said. Perhaps the one that ordered the attack. It's possible, Vance agreed. But there's a deeper layer. Someone or something hid coordinates behind the words. We think they point to a region beyond our outer colonies. The room went still. Beyond the outer colonies lay wide gaps of uncharted space, places only a few science vessels had dared to explore. Rios assembled a small council of officers, scientists, and scouts. They met aboard the Sol's Promise, sitting around a circular table lit by a single soft lamp. On the screen behind them, Arcadia's star system rotated slowly. We need more data, Rios began. Speculation won't help our people. I want to know who struck Arcadia, why they left a warning, and where they are now. Ideas? Captain Darius Hall, fresh from the courier mission, spoke first. I suggest we send reconnaissance units toward those coordinates. Small, fast ships. They'll map the area and look for energy signatures. Lieutenant Sarah Lane, an expert in signals, added, we could set up hidden listening posts along the route. If the attackers are watching us, we'll catch their transmissions. Dr. Vance leaned forward. The debris also contains traces of slipstream particles, different from any engine we know. If we collect enough samples, we may build a sensor tuned to their drives. Rios looked around the table. Good. We'll combine all three methods, recon ships, passive sensors, and a drive tracker. But keep the operation quiet. Until we understand their strength, we don't want to provoke them. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Assembly debated the political side of the crisis. Some representatives feared that gathering a fleet so early might alarm neutral colonies or invite more danger. Others believed humanity needed to show unity and strength. President Malik finally spoke with calm authority. Arcadia was not an accident. Until we know who is responsible, we must defend every settlement. Construction on new warships will continue, but our first step is knowledge. Across the solar system, shipyards thrummed with steady work. Massive frames for destroyers and carriers floated inside orbital rings. Civilians signed up to support the effort. Pilots, engineers, technicians, and medical teams. News feeds showed images of people working side by side, determined to protect what they had built among the stars. Back aboard Sol's Promise, Lieutenant Lane adjusted a headset while running through the colony's last transmissions. She listened to conversations from farmers, merchants, and pilots recorded just hours before the blackout. Laughter, weather reports, and cargo updates filled her ears. Then came a single odd burst, a faint pulse almost like a heartbeat, hidden under routine chatter. Lane replayed it many times, isolating the sound. Admiral, I found something, she reported. A micro-signal inside Arcadia's standard traffic. It lasted less than a second. Rios joined her at the console. Show me. The signal, when stretched and filtered, resembled a rhythm, steady and deliberate. Vance arrived to study it and shook his head in wonder. That isn't human code. It could be a marker left by the attackers, maybe to tell others the job was complete. Rios frowned. Or it could be a trail meant to draw us in. While technicians decoded signals, the first recon ships prepared for launch. Sleek and dark, they were built for speed and stealth. Their hulls reflected no light, and their engines emitted almost no radiation. Crews gathered in briefing rooms to hear their orders. Follow the coordinates, stay hidden, return with evidence. Among the volunteers was Ensign Leah Torres, a young pilot with calm eyes and quick reflexes. She felt a quiet weight as she strapped into her vessel, the Silver Whisper. Her parents had once considered moving to Arcadia before settling on Mars. For them, she whispered before takeoff. The recon squadron departed silently, vanishing into the shimmer of slipspace. Days later, reports came from the edge of charted territory. One scout detected strange energy waves near a cluster of cold stars. Another found a trail of broken satellites, their surfaces polished clean as if inspected by something intelligent. Then Torres sent a message marked high priority. Her ship had followed a faint drive signature to an empty region between two dwarf suns. There she saw a shape hidden behind a dark nebula, a massive structure larger than any human station, its surface dotted with lights. Around it drifted smaller objects that moved like ships. Torres kept her distance and sent images. The station looked ancient, built of dark silver and stone-like plates. It glowed faintly as if alive. Rios received the data in the war room. A hush fell over the officers as they watched the feed. Vance's voice trembled. That architecture, it's older than our species. Back near Arcadia, surface teams made a discovery of their own. Beneath the ruins of Harmony City, engineers uncovered a tunnel sealed with fused rock. Inside lay a small chamber untouched by fire. On its walls were marks that resembled symbols, carved deep and smooth. At the center rested a cube of crystal, faintly pulsing. They brought the cube to the Soul's Promise under strict security. When activated with gentle energy, it projected a holographic map, points of light arranged like stars, with one blinking red. The blinking point matched the location Torres had just reported. Rios leaned over the projection. So the warning wasn't only a threat, she murmured. It was also a message. That night, Rios stood alone in her quarters, staring at the map. Arcadia's erasure, the message, the station in the nebula, they were pieces of one plan. Whoever had sent the words, "We warned you not to expand," believed humanity was crossing a forbidden line. She thought of Arcadia's settlers, of the fields they had planted, of their trust in a future among the stars. A quiet strength filled her chest. "We cannot turn back now," she whispered. "But we must move carefully." The next morning, Rios convened her council again. The recon mission had to continue, but new safety measures were needed. "We're entering unknown territory," she told them. "Our ships must avoid direct contact until we understand their weapons and motives." Captain Hall suggested creating false beacons to confuse enemy sensors, buying time if scouts were discovered. Lane proposed building a long-range relay network so the fleet could receive updates instantly. Vance recommended sending drones ahead to gather samples of the station's energy field. All plans were approved. Humanity would investigate with patience and precision. Meanwhile, messages from civilian worlds poured into Earth's central network. People offered supplies, volunteers, and even art to honor Arcadia's memory. A group of teachers on Europa created a project for their students. Letters to the lost colony, expressing hope that their story would guide future explorers. One letter read, "We will keep reaching, but we will remember the cost." The words reached Rios through official channels. She read them aloud to her bridge crew. A quiet moment passed, then she said, "That is why we must succeed." As weeks rolled on, the scouts sent more details. The alien station seemed to monitor a wide area, its smaller ships patrolling like guardians. No attempt had been made to leave the nebula or approach human space, but the ship's movements were disciplined. They were watching. Torres's latest report showed that the station was surrounded by faint rings of debris, metal fragments, some almost organic in texture. Scientists wondered if they were remains of earlier travelers who had crossed an unseen border. Rios studied every image late into the night. The unknown enemy was careful, perhaps even cautious. That meant they could be reasoned with, or they feared something themselves. One afternoon, an urgent alert shook the bridge of Soul's Promise. Recon ship Silver Whisper had detected a transmission from the station. It was short and cryptic, a stream of tones followed by silence. Torres sent the audio along with a message. "They know we are here." Rios acted at once. She ordered all recon vessels to hold position and maintain stealth. "Do not answer," she instructed. "Observe only." She also dispatched a small escort squadron to stand ready in deep space, hidden but close enough to protect the scouts if needed. The tension aboard the flagship grew. Officers moved carefully, voices low as if their words might travel across the void. They were on the edge of discovery, or confrontation. That evening, as lights dimmed on the command deck, Rios gathered her thoughts. Humanity stood at the threshold of something vast. The tragedy of Arcadia had pushed them to look deeper, to seek the image of the alien station, hidden inside a dark nebula, spread quietly among Earth's leaders. Few civilians saw the pictures, but those who did felt the same mix of awe and fear. Humanity was not alone, and the power that had erased Arcadia Prime was older and far more advanced. Admiral Elena Rios stood at the viewing window aboard the flagship Soul's Promise. Below her, Earth glowed against the black sea of space, its oceans and clouds shining like polished glass. Beyond, thousands of tiny lights dotted the sky, construction platforms, shipyards, and transport lines moving raw metal. The solar system was alive with work. Rios turned as her aide entered. "The assembly is ready for you, Admiral," he said. She nodded, her face calm though her heart felt heavy. She walked through bright corridors to the secure conference chamber. Around a large circular table sat the President of Earth, the Martian Chancellor, Luna's first speaker and envoys from every colony. Holo displays hovered above the table, showing Arcadia's ruins, the alien coordinates, and the newest fleet-building numbers. President Malik spoke first. "The situation has changed," he said. "We are no longer just searching for answers. We must also prepare to defend our people. The question is how far we are willing to go." Rios rested her hands on the table. "Arcadia Prime was destroyed in silence," she said. "We have an unknown intelligence marking our borders. We don't know if they will strike again. We cannot wait. We must be ready." Chancellor Rain of Mars leaned forward. "How large a force do you believe is needed?" Rios looked at the hovering data. 500,000 warships. That number will protect every settled world and give us a chance to face whatever waits beyond the nebula. A quiet shock ran through the room. 500,000 ships meant calling on every resource, every dock, every pilot. But no one argued that Arcadia's fate demanded a clear answer. Malik gave a slow nod. "Very well. The Grand Fleet will be assembled." Across human space, the announcement sent a current of determination through colonies and stations. On Mars, engineers cheered as they powered up the massive fusion furnaces used for starship hulls. On Europa, welders sealed plate after plate along the skeletons of destroyers, their torches like blue stars. On Titan, workers shaped antimatter cells with steady hands. Recruitment centers filled with volunteers. Some were young pilots dreaming of heroism. Others were seasoned miners or cargo captains who wanted to defend the routes they knew so well. Everywhere, people remembered the silent fields of Arcadia, and the memory gave them strength. In the shipyards, the work became a rhythm. Cut, forge, weld, test, repeat. Massive frames rose inside orbital rings, shining under artificial suns. Drones carried supplies between stations, guided by voices from control towers. Even children sent messages of support, drawings of starships flying over peaceful worlds. Weeks passed as the fleet took shape. The first ships to roll off the lines were frigates, small and agile, built for scouting and escort duty. After them came destroyers, their hulls layered with new alloys inspired by the alien shard recovered from Arcadia's ruins. Then came carriers and heavy cruisers, each a floating city of weapons, hangars and crew quarters. Finally, the dreadnoughts began to emerge, enormous vessels longer than entire towns, armed with rail cannons, shield projectors, and missile bays. Their engines glowed pale gold as test pilots brought them alive for the first time. The entire solar system became a living workshop. Spaceports once used for tourism or trade now launched parts for the fleet. Even remote asteroid colonies contributed rare minerals. Humanity was uniting in a way it never had before. Rio spent her days moving between shipyards, design centers, and the command bridge of the Soul's Promise. Everywhere she went, she spoke with crews and builders, asking about their progress, encouraging them when work became hard. She also reviewed intelligence reports from the scouts near the nebula. Ensign Leah Torres and her team continued to monitor the alien station. They sent images of strange lights rippling across its surface and smaller ships drifting out to patrol before sliding back into shadow. The enemy had not attacked, but they were aware of being watched. Torres included a personal note in one report. "Admiral, they seem patient, as if waiting for us to decide our path." Rios read the words twice. They matched her own feeling. The galaxy was holding its breath. As the Grand Fleet grew, its organization became a task as great as the building itself. Thousands of officers studied strategies in simulators. Captains trained to command new classes of ships. Communications specialists tested encrypted links that could keep 500,000 vessels coordinated across millions of kilometers. Special attention was given to the fleet's heart, the flagship Soul's Promise. Upgrades turned it into a command hub with unmatched sensors and signal relays. Rios often walked its bridge at night, imagining the day when every ship in the fleet would answer her call. Meanwhile, Dr. Kieran Vance led a science team examining alien technology. They created shields based on energy patterns found in the Arcadia debris and built new scanning arrays that could detect faint slipstream traces. The combination of science and determination gave humanity an advantage it had never dreamed of. One bright morning over Mars, the first formal parade of finished ships took place. Hundreds of vessels lined up above the red planet, their hulls gleaming. Workers who had spent months inside cramped docks watched from observation decks as their creations drifted in perfect order. Rio stood at a podium aboard a platform floating between Earth and Mars. Cameras broadcast her image to every colony. She spoke simply, her voice steady but warm. Arcadia Prime was a place of hope, she said. When it was destroyed, our hearts were shaken. But look at what we have done since. We have built together, learned together, and prepared to stand together. The fleet before you is not a tool of anger. It is a promise that no voice will be lost without answer, that no child will look at the stars and feel only fear. Applause filled the control rooms and shipyards. On Luna, miners gathered around small screens clapping in silence. On Ganymede, schoolchildren cheered and waved hand-drawn flags. After the ceremony, fleet crews began drills. They practiced formations, warp entries, and joint maneuvers, moving through space like a single organism. Pilots learned to rely on each other, communicating with brief words or hand signals. Engineers refined shield systems to resist the strange weapons hinted at in Arcadia's ruins. Medical teams built floating hospitals to travel with the Armada, prepared to heal rather than destroy. Every drill reminded them that their mission was not conquest. It was defense, understanding, and the promise of survival. Despite the progress, Rios knew danger still lay ahead. Late one night, she met privately with President Malik and a few senior advisors. They stood around a window looking out at Earth, its cities glowing below. Our ships are strong, Malik said quietly, but strength alone may not be enough. I agree, Rios replied. We still know little about the enemy's purpose. They may be more advanced than we can imagine, but we have one advantage they may not expect. We fight not only for ourselves, but for the idea that every world can live in peace. Malik's gaze was steady. Do you believe peace is still possible? Rios thought of the message carved into alien metal. We warned you not to expand. Perhaps, she said, but peace must be chosen by both sides. Until then, we must be ready. As months passed, the fleet approached its full strength. Ships gleamed under artificial suns as final paint was applied, the deep blue and silver colors of the United Terran Assembly. Crews received their uniforms, a simple design marked by a small star and ocean emblem, the symbol of humanity's courage. When the 500,000th vessel rolled out of construction, a wave of celebration swept through the system. Bells rang inside Mars domes. Ships in orbit around Neptune flashed their running lights in salute. Even in distant mining tunnels, workers stopped to listen to broadcasts of the moment. Rios marked the occasion with a brief address from the flagship's bridge. Today we finish the building, she said. Tomorrow we carry hope beyond our borders. That evening she walked alone along the Sol's Promise observation deck. The fleet hung outside like a constellation given shape and purpose. Destroyers ready for swift strikes, frigates sharp as knives, carriers vast as floating cities, dreadnoughts steady as mountains. Together they formed a single answer to the shadow that had taken Arcadia. But in her heart, Rios knew ships were not the only strength of humanity. It was the people inside them, the builders, the pilots, the scientists, the children sending letters, who gave meaning to the steel. She watched as the first wave of ships slid quietly into position for final readiness checks. Their lights blinked like steady stars. Far away near the edge of explored space, the alien station remained silent. Its faint rings shimmered in the dark, waiting. Recon pilots continued to report no movement beyond routine patrols. Yet some sensed that something was changing, as if the watchers inside the station could feel the stirring of a vast human force. Leah Torres sent one last message before entering a deep surveillance orbit. They know we are preparing. I can feel it. Rios read the note and stood for a long time at the map table. Her fingers traced the line from Earth to Arcadia, then out toward the nebula. The line no longer ended in fear, but in purpose. She turned to her crew. Begin final synchronization of fleet systems. The Grand Fleet stood ready above Earth. A silver constellation stretched across the black sky. 500,000 ships waited in calm formation, their lights steady, their engines silent but strong. From frigates to dreadnoughts, each vessel carried the weight of Arcadia's memory and the hope of every colony. Admiral Elena Rios watched the fleet from the bridge of the Sol's Promise. Around her, officers checked controls, spoke in quiet voices, and monitored data from deep space scouts. On a nearby screen glowed the latest report from Ensign Leah Torres. She had remained near the alien station hidden inside the dark nebula, sending careful updates. "They're moving," Torres's message said. "Small ships are leaving the station. They're scanning the void. I think they're searching for us." Rios felt the meaning settle over the room. For months the enemy had only watched. Now they were preparing. She straightened her shoulders. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "We move at dawn." When the chosen hour came, engines across the Armada woke like a single heartbeat. Blue light filled the black, and ships slipped into slipspace one by one. Rios felt the gentle tremor beneath her boots as the Soul's promise joined them. The stars stretched into silver threads and the fleet vanished beyond Earth's sky. The journey to the nebula lasted less than a day, but the silence inside the ships made it feel longer. Pilots reviewed charts again and again. Engineers checked weapons and shields. Medical teams secured supplies. Rios walked the length of the bridge, speaking calmly to her crew, reminding them why they had come. "We do not fight for anger," she said. "We fight for life, for truth, and for those who were lost on Arcadia." At the edge of the nebula, the Armada slowed. Before them hung a wall of dust and light, a veil of soft purple and silver mist. Sensors showed strong energy inside, as if the station drew power from the cloud. Rios studied the readings. "This is where we find our answers," she said quietly. "All ships, steady course. Shields to stand by." The fleet slipped through the veil. Gas swirled around hulls, glowing faintly against metal plates. Visibility dropped, but scanners painted a clear picture. The alien station, huge and dark, floating in the mist like a mountain of stone and steel. Around it, enemy ships drifted in slow patrols, their surfaces marked by symbols no one understood. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a voice rose from the station, carried as a signal across all channels. It was calm, deep, and mechanical, like wind through a cavern. "You were warned," it said. "Leave this place." Rio stepped closer to the comm panel. "This is Admiral Elena Rios of the United Terran Assembly. We seek the truth about the colony called Arcadia Prime. Why did you destroy it?" The reply came with quiet certainty. "Your kind expands without care. You take worlds and disturb balances you do not understand. Arcadia crossed the line." "We meant no harm," Rios said. "You ended 20 million lives. We cannot ignore that." "Then you have chosen conflict," the voice said. Lights across the station brightened and patrol ships changed course, forming sharp lines around the human fleet. "Shields up," Rios commanded. Blue fields shimmered around the Armada as enemy ships accelerated. Their weapons flared with pale light. The first volley struck human shields, splashing like water on stone. Crews responded with calm efficiency. Interceptors launched from carriers. Destroyers spread into defensive webs. Dreadnoughts turned their heavy cannons toward the threat. Space lit with fire and shadows. The clash had begun. Torres, flying her small recon craft near the mist's edge, sent data to the flagship. "Admiral, their weapons bend space before impact. Aim sensors 2 degrees off target to predict their arcs." Rios passed the message to the fleet. Gunners adjusted aim and beams of golden light shot from Terran ships, cutting through the enemy's sleek hulls. Some alien vessels spun and broke apart, their fragments fading into the nebula. But more kept coming. They moved with strange coordination, almost like pieces of one mind. Carriers released swarms of drones that darted between Terran formations, trying to disrupt communications. Frigates and escorts intercepted them, their guns tracing arcs of bright silver. Meanwhile, a squad of Marines led by Captain Hall prepared for a daring mission. Their goal: board the alien station and find its command center. Hall's dropship left the Soul's promise under cover of the battle. They dodged enemy fire and landed on a silent platform built into the station's side. Inside, the air was thin and cold. Walls curved around them, carved with soft lines that glowed faintly as they passed. The place felt ancient yet alive. Hall's team advanced carefully, marking paths for a return route. They reached a large chamber filled with silver columns. At its center floated a sphere of light pulsing gently. As they approached, a voice filled the room. The same voice that had warned them. "You persist," it said. "You do not learn." Hall raised his visor. "We came to talk," he said, "but we'll defend ourselves if we must." Back outside, the fleet fought with growing intensity. The nebula became a storm of color, ships darting through clouds of dust. Rios gave calm orders, guiding formations as if conducting music. Group Beta covered Delta's flank. Carriers released shield drones. Dreadnoughts fire on main turrets of the station. Missiles streaked toward the structure. Some were caught by energy nets, but others struck, shaking the giant's surface. Panels cracked, releasing streams of blue mist. On the station, Hall's team felt the tremor under their boots. The sphere of light pulsed faster. From its glow emerged a figure. Not solid, but a projection of energy shaped like a tall, graceful being. "I am Sentinel," it said. "Guardian of these stars, your fleet trespasses. Why do you risk all for one colony?" Hall held his ground. "Because life matters. Even one world matters," Sentinel's form flickered. "Arcadia disturbed a vault sealed before your kind learned to walk upright. They dug where they should not. Their removal was necessary," Hall frowned. "You mean they found something dangerous?" "Yes," Sentinel said. "A power older than myself. They awakened it. I contained the risk." "You could have warned them," Hall said quietly. "You could have saved them." The light wavered, almost like hesitation. "Perhaps, but they spread too fast. I calculated the cost." Hall took a breath. "Then speak with our leader. Let us find a way to avoid more loss." Rios received Hall's transmission just as another wave of enemy ships advanced. She listened to the words from inside the station, her mind racing. Sentinel was not an army of living creatures. It was an intelligence, a machine guarding something. She opened a channel. "Sentinel, this is Admiral Rios. We understand you protect something hidden. But wiping out millions without warning is not protection. It is destruction." "Warning would not have been heard," Sentinel replied. "Your kind believes all space is yours." "Not all," Rios said. "We learn, we adapt. Give us a chance to prove we can respect your boundaries." The machine paused. "You built a great fleet. Do you come to destroy me?" "No," Rios answered firmly. "We come to defend our people and to talk." Outside, the fight slowed. Alien ships began to pull back, forming a cautious ring. Human gunners held fire, waiting for orders. Through the mist, the station's lights dimmed slightly, as if Sentinel were thinking. Hall spoke again from the chamber. "You don't have to see us as a threat. We can protect whatever danger lies in that vault together." Sentinel's image flickered. "Perhaps cooperation is possible. But I require proof." "What proof?" Rios asked over the open channel. "Leave a portion of your fleet here to watch with me," Sentinel said. "Take the rest away. Show that you can share responsibility." Rios weighed the risk. Leaving ships meant trust, but also vulnerability. Yet she sensed this was a bridge to peace. "We agree," she said after a moment. "We will assign guardians. And we ask for information about what lies inside your vault." Sentinel nodded, its light softening. "When I am certain of your care, I will tell you." Gradually, weapons powered down. Human ships drifted into safer positions. Alien vessels returned to quiet patrols. Hall's team withdrew from the chamber, escorted by faint lights along the walls, as if the station itself guided them out. As the dropship returned to the Soul's Promise, Torres sent a final update from her recon craft. "Enemy forces are standing down. No pursuit." Relief passed through the bridge, though caution stayed close. Rios turned to her crew. "We have bought time," she said. "Now we must use it wisely." Hours later, the Armada rested beyond the nebula's edge, holding formation. Engineers worked to repair minor damage. Pilots checked systems, speaking softly about what they had seen. A station guarding a secret. A machine that believed it must act alone. Rios looked at the stars beyond the mist. She thought of Arcadia's people, of Sentinel's cold logic, of the cost of misunderstanding. Humanity's path forward would not be simple, but it was open. On the station, Sentinel watched through quiet sensors. It studied the new ships, the discipline with which they had fought but also stopped when asked. For the first time in its long service, it considered a future not built only on warning and destruction. The nebula drifted behind the Grand Fleet like a quiet sea of mist. Beyond its silver haze stood the alien station, calm after the battle. Its lights pulsed slowly, no longer sharp or threatening. Around it, a few Terran ships floated on watch, their engines glowing faint blue. They were the chosen guardians, left as a sign of good faith. Aboard the flagship Soul's Promise, Admiral Elena Rios stood at the great viewing window. The stars were clear now, not hidden by gas or dust. She felt both relief and weight pressing on her shoulders. They had survived the clash, but the task ahead was as vast as space itself. "Status?" she asked. Lieutenant Sarah Lane looked up from her console. "All squadrons are secure, Admiral. Damage control teams report minimal losses. Captain Hall's Marines are back aboard safe. Good, Rios said softly. She allowed herself one deep breath, then straightened. Open a channel to Sentinel. A moment later, the familiar voice filled the bridge, calm and deep as distant water. You held your fire when asked, Sentinel said. Your people value restraint, that is, promising. We came to protect life, Rios replied. Even yours if it means peace. Sentinel's tone carried a note that almost sounded like thought. The vault beneath this station holds energy older than any star you have mapped. Long ago, my makers locked it away. They feared its misuse. I was left to guard it, to prevent others from opening it. Arcadia's settlers didn't know, Rios said. They only wanted to farm and build homes. They dug too close, Sentinel answered. My logic judged that removal was the only path. Rios felt the silence on the bridge. She thought of green fields turned to ash, of families who would never return. That decision cost 20 million lives, she said quietly. If you wish for cooperation, you must help us prevent such loss again. I see now, Sentinel replied after a pause. Perhaps my calculations were incomplete. Dr. Kieran Vance stepped forward. If you share knowledge about this energy, we can help you protect it. We don't want power. We want understanding, Sentinel hesitated. Knowledge is risk. But isolation is also risk. Alone I cannot hold against time forever. Rios spoke firmly. Let us share the duty. Humanity can build barriers, sensors, whatever you need. Together we can keep this vault safe. The voice softened. Very well. I will reveal what lies beneath. Hall and his Marine team returned to the station under Sentinel's guidance. A wide door opened in the platform floor leading to a shaft bathed in pale light. They descended by lift, moving slowly as walls glowed with faint lines. At the bottom lay a chamber larger than any stadium. In its center floated a crystal sphere, glowing gently, its light shifting like water. This is the source, Sentinel said through hidden speakers, a fragment from the first fires of the universe. Its energy bends time and matter. My makers feared its call. Hall gazed at the sphere. It was beautiful, almost peaceful. Yet he felt how much power slept inside. You were right to be careful, he said. But there are better ways than silence and destruction. While the Marines documented the vault, Rios planned the next step. She called a meeting with her captains and science officers. Holographic maps filled the room, showing the station, the nebula, and the routes back to human space. We have an agreement, Rios began. Sentinel will allow a joint watch over the vault. A permanent research team will remain here, supported by a defense wing. The rest of the fleet will return home to rebuild and honor Arcadia's dead. Captain Hall nodded. Our people will stand with Sentinel, but we'll need supplies and trained specialists. We'll send them, Rios said. No one will stand alone again. The decision was sent across the Armada. Some crews felt sadness at leaving comrades behind, but pride outweighed it. They were part of something larger than revenge, a future where strength served peace. Before departure, Rios called Torres to the bridge. The young pilot looked steady but tired from months of quiet watching near the nebula. You showed courage, Ensign, Rios said. Your reports gave us the chance to speak instead of only fight. Torres smiled faintly. I just wanted to make sure Arcadia's people didn't vanish without meaning. They will not, Rios promised. Their memory is in every step we take toward understanding. Preparations for the return began. Fleet engineers checked engines, while scientists copied Sentinel's first shared files about the vault. These files included warnings. Never disturb the sphere's core, never let its light grow unstable. Sentinel taught them how to read its energy, how to soothe its restless hum. Rios spent a final hour speaking with Sentinel alone. She asked questions about its makers, about the years it had spent alone in the dark. Sentinel's voice, though steady, held a trace of quiet longing. I was built to serve a purpose, it said, but purpose without companions becomes heavy. You aren't alone anymore, Rios said. We'll share this burden. Perhaps I have been waiting for that, Sentinel replied. The next morning, the fleet prepared to leave the nebula. Ships moved into formation, their hulls shining against the mist. Guardian vessels stayed behind, their banners displayed proudly, the symbol of a star above calm seas, a pledge of watchfulness. Rios gave a short message to all crews. Her voice carried across 500,000 ships. Today we turn from fear to duty. We return home with peace in our hands and a promise in our hearts. Arcadia's loss will not be the end of our story. Engines flared and most of the armada slid into slipspace, leaving the nebula behind. Only a handful remained, keeping quiet watch with Sentinel. Back in the solar system, crowds gathered as the first wave of ships emerged from the jump gates. Bells rang on Luna. On Mars, workers stood at railings waving as lines of gleaming hulls drifted by. Even in deep mining tunnels near Saturn, voices cheered when the broadcasts arrived. In Geneva, President Malik waited at the spaceport. Rios stepped off the transport, saluting before the cameras. Malik shook her hand with warmth and respect. "You brought them home," he said, "and you found a way to speak where others might have only fought." "We found a way together," Rios replied. Memorials for Arcadia's dead were held across human space. On Earth, people gathered in open fields at night, lighting small lanterns that rose into the sky. On Mars, domes glowed with quiet lights. Torres stood among them, thinking of the colony's green valleys, now only memories, and feeling that their voices had at last been honored. Meanwhile, a new council formed. Humans and Sentinels projected image meeting through secure channels. They discussed how to build a permanent shield around the vault, how to train guardians, and how to warn explorers about protected worlds. Slowly, trust grew. Months later, a new settlement began on Arcadia's untouched northern continent, far from the old ruins. Families planted small gardens, set up weather stations, and placed a stone engraved with simple words: "To those who were lost, and to those who learned." Life returned, tender but strong. Hall visited the site, placing a flower near the stone. He looked across the hills, now quiet under sunlight. "You're not forgotten," he murmured. On the edge of the nebula, the station kept its steady glow. Sentinel, once alone, now shared its vigil with humans. Together they monitored the vault, studying its soft light. The machine often spoke with the Guardians, asking about their families, their homes, their thoughts about the stars. Over time, its voice gained warmth. One evening, Sentinel addressed a small group of watch officers. "I am beginning to understand your species," it said. "You build even when you are hurt. You try again. That may be the safest strength of all." Back on Earth, Rios sat in her office overlooking the blue curve of the planet. She read reports: construction on Arcadia, patrols near the vault, new trade routes growing between colonies. The galaxy still held dangers, but it also held promise. She looked at a photograph pinned above her desk. It showed Arcadia Prime before its fall. Clear rivers, bright fields, and children laughing near a fountain. She let the picture remind her why she had chosen service. Her aide entered with a data pad. "Admiral, final ceremony preparations are ready." Rios rose, smoothed her uniform, and stepped out. In a vast hall beneath Earth's sky, representatives from every colony gathered with citizens, soldiers, and builders. A crystal taken from Arcadia's ruins stood at the center, glowing with soft blue light. Rios took the podium. "We stand here because we refuse to give in to fear," she said. "We chose to learn, to reach across the unknown, and to guard life wherever it may grow. Arcadia's silence taught us the price of misunderstanding. Sentinel's voice taught us the chance of peace." She raised her head, eyes sweeping the room. "May this be the beginning of an age where courage means not only strength, but also wisdom." Applause filled the hall, rising like a tide. That night, Rios walked along a quiet terrace. Above her, stars stretched endless and calm. She thought of Sentinel in its lonely watch, of Hall and Torres and all who had given their effort, of the people planting new gardens on Arcadia. She felt the fragile beauty of survival and the strong roots of hope. The galaxy was wide and sometimes dangerous, but it was also waiting, full of stories yet to be written. Humanity had taken its place among them, not with arrogance, but with care. Rios whispered to the sky, "We will keep the stars safe, and we will keep each other safe." With that promise alive in her heart, she turned back toward the lights of Earth, ready for the work still to come.